family. Welcome to episode 17. There's a lot going on in our society right now. We are in the midst of an election cycle where the incumbent is actually positive for the coronavirus and holding super spreader events at the White House, and dozens of people have already tested positive. And remember last week I said there is no cure for coronavirus. It's just the sad truth. People who have come in contact with this president, who have been infected by this president, have been hospitalized as a result of the infection, and he is holding additional super spreader events. So we need people to not drink the Kool-Aid. Like, this is a Jim Jones moment, right? We need to talk to people that you care about, that they may be Trump supporters, but this is like one of those situations where following a leader who is actually does not care about your life and your well-being could actually cause you an unfortunate and untimely death. So let's just be let's acknowledge that reality, and also just check in with people that you care about that are supporting this person, because right now 40%, at least 40% of the country, supports him, which is really terrifying. And then we have the governor of Michigan, whose life was at stake because she just was a victim of a terror attack against her by domestic white supremacist terrorists, and that's what we need to be calling them. Do not call them militia. They are white supremacist domestic terrorists. That's what they are. And they are being goaded by the President of the United States, and they are endangering the lives of all of us who they don't support being in this country. So we need to address it. We need to be very vigilant about it, and we need to be clear in our language when we are discussing it, right? So please do that work and educate folks about it. This episode, this is episode 17 is a talk between me and my youngest daughter, Aasiya Norris. Aasiya is a political science major at Boston University. She started her sophomore year this fall. Last spring, she came home for spring break, and she ended up staying with us all the way through the summer until she started the fall semester. And Sadiq and she and one of her closest friends, Omar, flew back to Boston together. Sadiq helped her move back. And I did one thing. I lost my daughter, but she did send me some sticky buns from Flowers. So thank you, Aasiya. But we have this really wonderful conversation, and it's just another really beautiful mother-daughter moment, following in the tradition of last week when we got to hear from Dina and her daughter Kiara. This week you get to hear from me and my youngest daughter Aasiya. So also want to shout out baby girl Tasneem. Tasneem is turning 21 years old on October 15th. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. That's the black version. Now I'm going to do the white version. I don't even know the white version. Okay, well, happy birthday. That's the universe. Feliz cumpleaños. That's the Spanish version. I don't know. Happy birthday. We love you with all our heart and soul. And enjoy this episode. If you like this episode, please subscribe to our podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Amina M, on Instagram at Unhidden Voices, on Facebook at Unhidden Voices. Subscribe to our newsletter, unhiddenvoices.org. And continue to listen, learn, and amplify with us. What is your name?
Aasiya Norris. Full name or?
Sure.
Aasiya Salwa Muhammad Norris.
What school do you attend?
Boston University. Go Terrier.
Can you describe it for us, and can you speak up, please?
Oh yeah. BU is located in Boston, Massachusetts. It's a private research institution. It's a predominantly white institution. I study political science. There's a pretty great political science department there. I also study law, and they have a great graduate law school, but the undergraduate, like pre-law concentration is kind of like just a label with not much that goes under it. Yeah, I don't know what else.
So how long have you been at this school?
I just finished my freshman year.
Describe the ways that COVID-19 impacted your life.
Well, I had come home for spring break on March 8th or 9th. And I was actually like at school. No one really talked about coronavirus very much. Yeah, no one really talked about it because it was like, on a college campus environment, everything is very much school centered. But I had no idea. Like, I was coming home for spring break. I packed a duffel. I didn't even pack any of my makeup or like my toothbrush charger because I was like, I'm only gonna be gone for a week. And then as I got back, I started hearing a lot like, oh, this school's going online. Like, it started with Harvard going online for the rest of the semester. And I was thinking, what the heck, are we gonna go online? And then part of me was like, kind of enjoying being home, so I wouldn't mind going on like getting a 2 weeks extended break, but I felt like that was kind of gonna just be the end of it. Then I got an email saying we're not coming back for 3 weeks. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just be back for 3 weeks, like 3 weeks from now. Then I got another email saying we're online for the rest of the semester. So it really just kind of like, yeah, it kind of disrupted a lot of things. It changed the learning environment. One of the things I love about like my courses is that like the discussions we have in them are so fantastic. And being able to have those connections with professors is fantastic, but you can't really do that virtually because like I live in California and my school is in Boston. So like there's the time difference.
So like what time are your classes?
Like I had a 6:30 in the morning class.
Wow.
And
how many days a week?
2 days a week, and then a 7 a.m.
Wow.
Did I attend those? Like, no. I just watched the recordings, but I mean, when it first started, I was like, I'm going to attend all my classes as usual. I had to like quickly change that. Yeah, and it just, it changed everything. Like,
what about like sheltering in place? What was that like?
Like, I mean, I'm lucky to have a place to shelter in place. One of the things I noticed is like, yeah, like we all got evicted from our college campuses, but like some people really had nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a place to go. So like I'm lucky to like be able to have a place to shelter in place. Like I have a balcony, I sit out there and I do whatever. I mean, obviously like it's weird to have all of your friends home from college and like whatever, but you can't see them. And it's kind of like, and it was fine when I was in school because I kept thinking, well, if I was at college, like I wouldn't have been able to see my friends from home anyway. But then like once I finished school and I've been off of school for like a month now, it's kind of just, it's weird.
And then what about like just your daily like routines, or have you increased doing certain things that you didn't do before?
Being on my phone. That's pretty much it. Like honestly, my daily routines are like I was talking to my friend last night. We were talking about like how it's like it feels like we're in a constant state of deja vu. Like I do the exact same thing every single day.
How do you describe our family to other people?
I don't know if I ever describe our family to other people.
Well, how would you?
That's a hard question. Like a big family, like pretty like close family. Just my immediate family or extended family too?
I mean, when I say family, what comes to mind, do you think?
My immediate family first. But like adding my grandma into that. And like I consider like Zachariah and Leilani, like Leilani is my sister and Zachariah is my nephew, so like immediate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like I think of like that.
What role do you play in the family?
Like a sister. I don't know.
Why? So what kind? I mean, there's different kind of sisters, but what kind of like, how different people play different roles. Not necessarily like I'm the sister, but like as the sister, what kind of responsibilities you feel like you have?
I don't really know. Like I'm the younger sister, but I think like I don't know, in this current political climate, like I do talk to my siblings a lot about like voter education and voting and like political involvement.
So you feel like you play the role of like advocate or activist?
Yeah, probably.
Why and how?
I mean, I just explained that, didn't I?
You just said you just named what you did. You didn't explain why you do that.
Why do I do that? Because I think like there's a lot of effort to silence Black voices. Like everybody wants to silence us, and they really bank on the fact that we lose hope when we give up. And I think it's really important that Black people don't give up. Also, I think you made voting a really big part of my life. Like political involvement has always been a big part of my life. Like you didn't vote like up until I was like 8. But like
you did
really?
You just don't remember I voted.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I used to vote for things that were like weird. Like you didn't do research.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I mean.
So why do you remember? Why do you remember voting when going?
I think every person born in 2001 who's like headed into their sophomore year of college, or even like if you're born in 2002, 2000, 1999, your first real political memory is Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about, it's like a celebratory moment. Like you remember like, oh, when I heard signs still delivered on the TV and saw the confetti and saw like this Black family, like that's like plastered in your brain. So like that's my first political memory. Like obviously, I mean, your first political memory, I don't know what it is, but probably isn't as nice. So because we kind of got introduced to politics in such a hopeful way, that hope is like really ingrained in my being. I'm still really hopeful, even though everything around me is terrible. And like we're in the global pandemic and we have horrible leadership, but I still have a lot of hope, and I still have I'm still passionate about politics because my first political experience was something so magnificent, something that, I knew it was historic, but I got to see 8 years of that and think like, this is normal, even if I disagreed with some things he did. And I mean, I definitely did. I'm definitely more progressive, but I got to see that moment and be like, wow.
Can you think about how did COVID-19 impact your immediate family and then our extended family?
Well, I think with the immediate family, like everyone worked from home or lost their job. So that was big. I mean, like Leilani was living here, and then she couldn't because like having a kid in the house, Zachariah, like you can't really do that. Like I think it like made things more stressful, definitely, but it made me realize how fortunate we are, because like both of my parents have money through COVID. Having money and resources in a pandemic is like the biggest thing, and I can't imagine not having that. And I think with the extended family, like they did go through not having resources during the pandemic, like people losing their jobs, like that's horrible. And it also comes with a lot of like uncertainty. And then also like I'm lucky enough to like I had a lot of information about coronavirus, and I mean actually I don't know about that, because the first thing was like, are you gonna ask me that question?
What question?
About my information about corona.
Huh?
Are you gonna ask me about the information I had about corona?
What do you mean? What information? Okay.
Like where I got my information sources? Are you gonna ask me that?
I wasn't.
Okay, cool. So I can answer the questions basically. I was going on, but I was like, oh, are you gonna ask me?
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, basically, like what I was trying to say was Yeah, like,
do you remember like when we first found out about the shelter in place?
well, yeah, but can I finish?
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So, like, what I was trying to say is, like, I am very, like, politically involved, and I, like, watch the news for fun and read articles to, like, help me sleep. Like, it's, like, something I do. So, I've had a lot of, like, information from, like, the WHO and the CDC, and, like, I was getting my info from credible sources. But then I'm like, some people in our family weren't.
Okay, so like who?
I mean, like, you were trying to find a blow dryer.
Okay, you talk about that?
Or like, you know
what
that
happened?
story.
No, because I'm asking it from your perspective, not my perspective.
Well, you were like laughing and you were like, yeah, like Auntie Shelly said you could take a blow dryer and it'll help you cure the virus. So I was looking for a blow dryer, like, ew, like, you know, but then so like that is like crazy. Like and I think like why are you laughing?
Go ahead.
Yeah, but like that, or like, I mean, like I heard,
because I was. So you were worried about me looking for a brother, or you were just worried about me getting incorrect information?
Horrible information, like gosh. And then I think like I was on TikTok and someone was like, please delete WhatsApp off of all of your parents' phones. Like, it was a joke, but they were like, my mom is hiding onions around the house because she heard if you put onions in every corner of your house, you can't get them back.
Was it a Black person?
Yes.
Oh God.
So
okay.
like the very terrible information going to Black people, or like Leilani would be like, I heard kids can't get it, so I'm not worried about Zachariah. And she has a child.
But
or
she
like,
did. Yeah, she said that to me too.
Or like, you know, like I heard Black people can't get it because of our melanin. Like just like really terrible information. So I made.
Do you remember me getting sick at the beginning and not knowing, or did you think I had it or no?
I thought you didn't have it.
But were you worried about it?
Or was I worried about if you had it?
Or like, or getting it, or any of us getting it? And are you still?
Was I worried about us getting it? We haven't really been anywhere. I mean, until recently, like protests, but I wouldn't ever think you had corona because I was like, how could you get corona?
From work.
Yeah, but like that girl didn't have a confirmed corona case.
Yes, but now we know that doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, but like still, like,
at that time.
I mean, like I was just like, okay, and then you know, like because you weren't feeling anything until she called you.
No, I literally was. Anyway, okay, now moving on. All right,
I'm not trying to say like, oh, like I don't believe you or whatever. Like,
yeah, whatever.
Or you're
share a family memory that means a lot to you, and why does that memory stand out for you?
Family memory that means a lot to me, and why does that memory stand out to me? Probably our first Thanksgiving in Vegas. Because like that really, you know, made Thanksgiving like a really big thing to me. Like I still really like care about it, you know. It kind of solidified those traditions, and you know, it really like connected our family like across. And what am I trying to say?
I don't know. What
bi-coastally, right?
Yes.
That's how you say that?
Yes.
Yeah, like I mean, that was the first time I was like really like, I mean, even if it was virtually, like introduced to our family bi-coastally, and I think that like kind of opened it up. Like I didn't really know Auntie Shelly before then. You know, and like she's a big part of my life, so it's cool. I hope that was great. It stands out to me.
Can you share do you remember the first time you learned about racism, and can you describe what that was like?
Do I remember the first time I learned about racism? No. I think like I just know I was Black and people are racist, and I went to a lot of PWIs.
So do you remember the first incident that you had? What was the first time that you recognized or knew you were Black? Do you remember that?
Do I remember the first time I recognized I was Black?
Or that maybe the first time you knew that someone else knew you were Black?
I don't remember that.
Like your teachers?
I think I don't know. Like, I can't say I've always known that I was like I don't know. Like I have no idea. I can't finger point the time.
Okay, well, I have a couple memories, but
The first time I thought you tell me.
Well, I was just thinking about so there's a couple of things. One is when your teacher asked you where your family comes from. Remember that?
Oh, she said, "Oh, so it's been a lot of you out here since Africa in the slave time."
Yeah.
And I thought, being now.
No, you actually came home and you're like, Mom, I was baffled. And you said baffled. And I was like, my daughter is baffled. And do you remember like when I was crying and I said I was gonna drop out of school?
No.
And you told me, I thought you said you were tired of seeing Black people fail. You don't remember that?
No.
You're the reason why I got my graduate degree.
Oh, well, thank you. You can attribute it all to me.
All right. Well, I just gave a couple, but can you share an experience of racism or discrimination with us?
I mean, I have a lot. Like one, like my earliest.
Or anyone that kind of really
I mean,
you want to talk about.
Well, I think, obviously what defined my entire adolescence was a 5-month investigation that ended with a racist teacher being fired, and then like all of my peers, except for my amazing friends who are still my friends to this day, like turning against me. That trauma defined my entire adolescence. So yeah.
How do you think racism impacts our family?
We're Black, so I think obviously the only memories I have of like schooling were like really like I wouldn't like existing, but not necessarily because obviously like I remember we lived in Hayward, I remember we lived in Oakland, but like not vaguely, like my concrete memories have always been in like white environments and like in a place of feeling like other. And we've been in a lot of environments, where we're the other. So I think it's always this like people have a lot of preconceived notions about you because of the color of your skin, because they're racist. And I think I don't want to say having to prove something, but like having to like keep your guard up and like always be on the defensive and just be like, like I'm human. Yeah.
How do you you kind of answered it with that question, but how do you deal with discrimination or racism?
If I'm honest, I don't deal with that. Like I spent a lot of time like in my life trying to educate people, like trying to make people see me as human. And I think like now in my life, I don't do that. Like I post my things, like, well, I'll talk about like, this is racist, this is whatever. And, like I do that and I talk about racism a lot, but I'm not doing it ever to educate anyone.
What are you doing it for?
I'm doing it kind of like therapy. Like as a coping mechanism. So I don't like spend my time, like, what was the question? I
said, how do you deal with discrimination or racism?
Oh, I guess by talking about it. So I guess I do deal with it. But like coming from other people, like if people are racist.
Well, I mean, you said you talk about it and you discuss it as a form of therapy.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. So what do you think is the difference between racism and discrimination?
Well, I mean, it's very like a concrete difference, like discrimination is something anyone can experience. And racism comes from power. And it comes from being backed by systems of oppression. So like I can say, I hate white people. And sure, that's discriminatory. Is that a right thing to say? I mean, I can argue that it is, but I can say that, and that's discrimination. But white people have the power to influence my housing, my education, whether or not I'm incarcerated, whether or not I have like money and food on my table, those are institutions of power. That's racism. It's backed by institutional power. It's not just words. It's about these institutions of oppression.
How have those differences played out in your life?
The difference between racism and discrimination.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like,
Have you experienced racism and have you experienced discrimination, or do you only feel like you experienced racism? Because you've spoken a lot to racism, but do you feel like you've been discriminated against when it wasn't racism?
yeah, like, I mean, I'm a woman. I've experienced that. Like, literally, I've in like elementary school and stuff and middle school, I spent a lot of time trying to be someone I wasn't because of all the internalized oppression I experienced. But what I realized what was really palatable to white people was feminism, not necessarily talking about race, and like that was never palatable to them. But it was always like, well, if I talk about feminism, then like they'll listen to me, even though like it can never be through an intersectional lens. I didn't realize that until like later in my life. But I did a lot regarding like feminism in my like,
I remember you doing the body shaming groups and the
and
stuff.
things like that
Mhm.
because of the discrimination like I experienced.
Yeah.
Because I was a woman. But what I didn't realize is that like I was experiencing that and I was experiencing racism, but I didn't want to admit it to myself because I didn't want to like not. I spent a lot of my time trying to be palatable.
Do you remember like the colonial day and you telling me that you wanted to just me not to fight it?
Yeah, which is just so sad.
You were like, Mom, like, please don't fight this. You're embarrassing me.
Yeah.
When I told then you wanted to dress like a planter.
Yeah, I know, and it's so sad to me.
Yeah.
But actually, you know what's crazy is when I was in a class, and that conversation came up about colonial days.
Mm-hmm.
And one person said she went to an all-white school and the teacher was like, okay, we're going to do a slave auction.
Mm.
And she had the kids like be the slaves and she was carrying around like a whip.
Oh my God.
Yes, like.
Well, at least you didn't have to deal with that.
I mean, yeah, but like, thank you for fighting Colonial Day.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'll be fighting Colonial Day.
Do you remember your parents having the talk with you?
About race?
About like preparing for like dealing with the police and how you have to dress, and you know, when they say the talk, it's like the conversation about like being prepared for police brutality or like being mistreated by the police. Do you remember any conversations about the police?
No, actually. I mean, which is interesting. I don't think because we were in a lot of white environments, like it was kind of like a by example thing. Like I was in the car when you guys all pulled over and stuff, like, you know.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, like I do, like, I mean, vaguely, but I do remember like Dad like driving us and like being pulled over, and it would be like, oh, this is like this taillight's out, but then like all the white people would be like driving around in their beat up, terrible, ugly cars. And nobody said anything, but they pulled over the black guy in a BMW, you know? Like, I do remember those things. It was kind of like a by example, like how he acted, not necessarily like.
Okay, well, that was the question. I said, do you remember the first time that you saw or experienced a Black person, including yourself, being mistreated by the police?
Do I remember the first time? I mean, no, I know that like.
Well, okay, so what time that you saw a Black person, maybe it wasn't the first time, but is there a time that really stands out to you?
That I saw a Black person being
mistreated by the police, yeah. Or knowing of it, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think when Trayvon Martin died, that was also a pivotal moment. Like, I was young, and I was still in that place of like trying to silence my Blackness. But his death and how widespread and how broadcast that was really, you know, made me separate myself from my white peers. Like, made me realize like my life is gonna be really different no matter how hard I try to assimilate to something that I don't want to be, or like, you know. And I always say like no Black person in my life ever told me Black wasn't beautiful, or that like I wasn't worthy, or that, you know, like I was supposed to have the exact same experiences as white people. No one ever said that to me. But like it was what white America taught me, like about myself, because I
think
was
like from watching television or just schools, or how do you think
mainly from my schools. But yeah, like also like everything around you socializes you to like be conditioned to whiteness. But Trayvon Martin's death was really like made me like be like, I'm not the same. Like I will never be treated the same as
a white person.
White people, yeah.
Have you protested against police violence, and can you explain why you have or why not, if you have not?
Recently?
Just
well, yeah, in my life I definitely have protested against police violence. Why? Because again, political action is really huge to me, but I think it's a combination between like direct action and political involvement. Like it's not two separate things. And I think, you know, if I really firmly believe that like when you elect people that care about your values and then you go out into the streets and you demand that those people that you elected, that they like be held accountable, then they will do that. But if you never voted or anything and you were just like, oh, whatever, like I don't have to vote, I'll just go march in the streets, then no one's going to be back in the state house enacting what you want. So I think it's definitely a combination of both.
What do you think about the police's interactions with the Black community?
They're rooted in white supremacy and they're all entirely racist. So there's a lot of people get really upset when you say defund the police, abolish the police, ACAB, you know, ACAB.
Tell us what it means.
All cops are bastards. F12, like people get really mad about all those things. I say all those things full-heartedly with my whole chest, and the reason I do is because the policing system, the original police were the slave patrol. Like there's no separating that. Like you can go as hard, you can try to be like, oh well, it's not the same. No, like our systems of mass incarceration literally came from the fact that they still wanted to have slavery, but they weren't allowed to have it. So they wrote into literally the Constitution of the United States saying that they could enslave us if it was for a crime. So they arrest us for petty crimes. Those slave patrol people that are now the cops, they're literally the same. Arrest us for petty crimes, things that weren't even crimes. I hate calling them petty crimes because they weren't even crimes. And started the system of mass incarceration. So like the police, that entire system is rooted in white supremacy. It's all entirely terrible. So I will never be like, oh, you know, not all cops are bad or like blah, blah, blah. No, all cops are bad. And if your like brother's cousin's girlfriend's cousin is a police officer, tell them to find a new profession, like, period.
All right. How have the police interacted with you?
Yeah, I think I stay very far away from police. I would never call the police for help or, you know, and I grew up in predominantly white areas. So, you know, like police aren't really around my area. Like I don't hear police sirens all the time or whatever. So I haven't had a lot of interactions with the police. I do remember one of my first interactions with the police. I was probably like 6. And I was in Oakland and I was standing in front of like a park and a police officer was around. And they were like, oh, hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And subconsciously I was backing away because like I already was afraid of police. And she was Black, the police officer, and she goes, why are you backing away from me? Are you scared? Are you scared of police? Is that why you're backing away? And I didn't know what to say. And that's kind of like one of the first like interactions I had. I've always been like, I've never wanted to approach police. And at these like recent protests, I've never wanted to approach police. Like when we were at the protest in the Mission, there was like a police sniper on the roof. And everyone was yelling at him. And, you know, I was yelling at him and we were like, why is your face covered? Why are you hiding? Why or whatever? But then he started to move and then I got scared and I was like, oh, is he gonna like shoot me? I was like, there's a lot of white people around me, like I'll be the first to go. And I like turned to Sadiq and I said I wanted to leave. So my relationship to police has always been this like fear of them, this feeling that they're never going to be there to like keep me safe, and that like I have to do everything I can to like stay away from them as much as possible.
Have the police interacted with your immediate family that you can remember?
Have
Like,
the police like interacted with y'all?
yeah, like do you remember any kind of interactions with the police that kind of stand out to you for your family?
No, not really. Like, not off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of family, what role does family play in your life and why?
Didn't you ask me this question?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
I said, what role do
did
you play? Now I'm asking you, what role does the family play in your life?
I think it's definitely like a support, you know, like growing up in white areas. I mean, not this is not just because I grew up in a white area, but like in general too. Like you look to your family as like someone to like lean on, especially like, you know, all the things I was going through, haven't really been that many Black people around me in my life except for my family. You know, to talk to lean on, to, you know, have like those are the people that really relate to you in all situations. And because they've seen you through every single stage of your life. And so my family is like my support, but also like people that like uplift me, like make me feel so powerful and like make me realize like, wow, like my voice is really important, you know, like that feeling of like knowing you have like permanent people that will always have your back is huge. Like that's so important. So yeah.
Who taught you to value our family?
Who taught me to value the family? I don't know, but I think the family was always something that was valued in my life. Like I don't remember like someone sitting down to me like you need to value the family.
So how do you think that you?
Well, the family's always around, so you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like I think. Yeah, I mean, like I was always surrounded by my family, so like you know, it was ingrained in me to like value those relationships because they were like around me. They were like it was proximity. I think that's what taught me to value family.
Okay. How would you like to be remembered by our family?
How would I like to be remembered? Hopefully not in a bad way. I don't know. Like honestly, like yeah, I mean, if I can be remembered as someone who learned and also taught, you know, someone who spoke up for what they believed in, yeah, that would be cool.
Who in the family has been your biggest teacher and why?
I think you've been my biggest teacher, Mother.
Why do you think that?
Well, obviously you're a teacher, but like that's not really why. But like, I mean, I've learned so much from you. I always I talk to my friends, and they like ask me like, "What's your like family like?" and you know whatever. And I like say like my mom taught me like a woman can do it all, and a Black woman can do even more. And like, don't get emotional.
Okay, I promise.
But because I was like, I mean, we were, you know, like it takes a lot to go back and get your doctorate when you're, you know, not fresh out of college. And like lots of kids in, you know, and I was like, that really like inspires me. And also like Black women have to work way harder for anything that we ever get in our lives. The fact that you just never stop working is like really inspiring to me. That like pushes me. Like I never want to like be in a situation where like I think like I can't have a family and have a career because I'm like, well, my mom has a family and a career, and she did it like when like all of her kids were like in elementary, middle school, and even before then. Like that's huge. Like I never want to feel like, oh, I can't have a family, get education, or like I have to separate those because those are different things. Like those are ingrained things. Those are not ingrained, intertwined. That's the word. And like yeah, so I think, you know, the main thing I've learned is, like I said, like a woman can do everything, but a Black woman could do even more.
And is that the question I was going to ask is something that you learned that you'll never forget? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Okay. So what do you want everyone to know about what it means to be a part of our Black family in America?
About what it means to be part of our Black family?
Mm-hmm.
I think it means to know love, like inside and out. Know that like I mean, our family's not a perfect little family, you know. I hope we're not like trying to paint like some sort of picture. There's a lot of like crazy people in this family. But what I will say is like there's a lot of crazy people in this family, but it's like it's cool. Like at the end of the day, like it's a good family. Like, you know, like we're like I feel happy. Like I feel like when I go see my family, like it's not like a bad time. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, I have to see my relatives. Ugh. Like I'm not that, like, you know.
Yeah.
Because like I know like at the end of the day, like regardless of what crazy individual is in the family, like there's still a lot of love in the family. So.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay. Wait, you want me to ask you these exact same questions?
Sure.
I mean, you know what your name is.
I do know my name.
What's your name?
My name is Doctora. No.
Oh, Lord.
Dr. Amina Norris.
Cute, Mom. Okay. Do you want to go full?
Oh, Amina.
Did you forget?
Amina Muhammad Namusa Norris.
Doctor.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor. PhD.
Describe your occupation.
I am a teacher educator, so I train future teachers for a living. That's pretty much what I do most of the time. And now I have started writing, so I'm also a freelance writer.
Oh, okay. How long have you been doing this job?
So I've been in education for 20-something years. I've been teacher educator for about 4 years, and I really just started writing for about 15 weeks. So I started writing during Ramadan, and I just haven't stopped.
So, you know, how has COVID-19 impacted your life?
It's impacted my life a lot. I've been sheltering in place since March. When it first happened, when we first started sheltering in place, I was sick. I wasn't able to get treatment from, or get a test because they didn't really have tests and they weren't really aware of like what was going on. And so I was really seeking any kind of information, and I got a lot of faulty information about it. Like like my cousin sent me something saying like, if you use a blow dryer and just, spray it directly in your effing face, then that'll clear the virus because the virus lives in your nostrils. And I was like so tired of being sick that I was like searching through the house for a blow dryer, which I couldn't find. But yeah, I think, I don't know if I was sick for like about 5 or 6 weeks. And then by the time I actually got better, I actually had a coronavirus test, and I tested negative. But I was quarantined anyway, and I had to stay in my bedroom. My kids lost their jobs. Well, and then my eldest daughter, who was staying with us, we had to tell her because of, I had just gotten better. And Tarek was, Black people started dying from this. So then we got worried because it was like people our age are dying the most. And so we've been like very, very nervous about it. And then my mom's age, she's very susceptible. So like I'm very close to my mom, and I haven't really been able to like, for 2 months, I didn't actually even see her. I just would see her like talk to her on the phone and stuff like that. And she like lives like 20 minutes away from us. So like we visited a couple times, but I haven't touched her in 3-4 months. Like no hugs, no like kisses on the cheek, nothing. So that's been, that's hard. And like our family does a lot of things together, like family potlucks and all that kind of stuff. And we haven't done any of that either.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about it, but like how COVID's infected? Please, God, no. Impacted your immediate family, but what about your extended family?
Well, I would say also because, one of my daughters lives in New York. So my 2 youngest daughters went away to school. Aasiya came home spring break. She didn't leave. her room.
You sound bitter about that.
I was going to turn your room into my office. That was my plan, and then I couldn't because
she was so ready to
yeah, like she came back, and I'm like, oh damn. That's out the window. And then Sadiq, he got laid off. So Aasiya and Sadiq were like studying from home. Tariq actually had to shelter in place. So then the four of us basically were in this house kind of just trying to, and we're still doing that, me and Tariq juggling schedules. You know, we don't have like a home office. So like I'll be in my bedroom and he'll be in the living room, and then we'll switch, you know, so we can work or whatever. And we're home all day. And then, you know, so it's like we don't get to leave for work and come back. So we've actually had to figure out how to like be around each other pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, my question was about your extended family.
So my extended family, so my family, my mom's side like works in the casino industry. So there was like a lot of layoffs. And my brother and sister, you know, my brother, he wasn't laid off, but he was like, he's been working from home. My cousins, like everybody's basically been working from home, and none of us have really been able to see each other. We just like talk on the phone.
Yeah, but you know, like you don't really get to see your East Coast family ever,
well, like
so.
I don't, but they had like we talk all the time. I talk to them like a couple times a week. I text them every single day.
Do you feel like you talk to them more now because everyone's home?
I see them more because we do FaceTime. Like me and Shelly FaceTime like a couple times a week now.
I know
like,
I'm changing your questions, but I'm trying to get to the juicy details.
Yeah, no, but it's been yeah. I feel like,
so is it like a blessing in disguise because you see them virtually more?
I do, and also like I feel like for Shelly, for example, like she was had just moved down to Boston from like Baltimore area down to Maryland, and she had just been working like 45 days, but she's a newlywed, and so actually I think it was a blessing in disguise because she got to spend more time, you know,
with her husband
in Jersey instead of like only coming home on the weekends. That might, I mean, she'll probably talk about that herself in her interview, but yeah.
Okay. So speaking of your family, how would you describe our family to others?
I always say, I think when I describe us as the best family in the whole wide world, I just think I love my family so much, and I think we're awesome. I think we're loud. I think we love each other. I think we're supportive. You know, I do agree that we're like, there's some nut cases in there, but you know, when it's all said and done, like, I think family is everything. Like, you know.
Yeah. So like, what role do you play in the family? Why? How? Provide an example.
So, well, okay. So my cousin one time, like I was talking to him, Doug, and he said, like, you're the soldier. You're like the loyal soldier. So, yeah. So I think maybe I play this role of like that person, that support person. For a long time, I was like the person that anytime we wanted to do any family event, I'm the one coordinating it. I also have started being the family kind of historian, documentarian. So like I've been like, you know, I've coordinated or try to do little videos. I'm doing this. I started researching our family history, and you know, I
started stealing my hair ties.
Whatever. But yeah, I feel like I try and, because my mom really taught me, because like when I was a kid, you know, we lived in California, and like her siblings and her nieces and nephews all lived on the East Coast, but she like talked to them all the time, and it was like she had us still kind of feel like we were very close to them, even though we were 3,000 miles away. Yeah. So I feel like that's my job in a lot of ways, to try and make that same thing for my kids.
Yeah. Describe your immediate family.
So my husband and I have been married for almost 25 years. Like we met in Montgomery, Alabama. We're college sweethearts, and he and I are best friends. We're kind of like a lot different because I think I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert, but it's like I'm a yin and he's a yang, whatever. And then we have four adult children. My eldest is 27. Leilani, she's like the kind of funny, one. I think she thinks she's a funny one too, but I kind of feel like she's funny. And then Sadiq to me has more of like that kind of calm demeanor of everyone. Tasneem, I always do this. They hate it, but I'm sorry because there's four of them, so I always get their names, mush them together. Tasneem is like the introverted extrovert. So like she, which is really interesting because I feel like she has a lot of her dad's characteristics. But then in a small circle of friends and stuff like that. But then like around the people that she knows and cares about, she's very extroverted. And Aasiya to me has always played the wise old woman. Like even though she's the youngest, she's always been like that person that kind of like and the caretaker or caregiver, like she's always cooking. She's always, the activist. She wants to make sure that everybody has everything they need, via information, food for sure. Yeah, that's how I see and then I have a grandson, Zachariah, who I just adore him. He's just like
perfect human.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not really my interview, but I always say, I don't know, this is not my interview.
You already answered these questions.
Well, no, like I just have to say, like Zachariah, like everything, there's a lot of crappy things in the world, but great thing about having like some like him around is that he makes you see things like in such a beautiful way. Because like, for example, like he'll like have like a ball, like an exercise ball in the living room, and that exercise ball is like, oh, this is so great, like look at me, I'm bouncing this ball, like it's so much fun. And like the news could be on and they could be talking about like the latest like 1,000 COVID deaths, but like he doesn't care, like he's got a ball, like it makes you like, it puts everything into perspective, like this tiniest thing can bring you joy. Yeah, it's not my interview, but I have to say that. Yeah. Okay, share a family memory that means a lot to you.
Actually, the memory that I'm going to share is a memory of, so my aunts came to California, and it was for my Aunt Carmen's birthday, and they wanted to go to Napa to the wine train.
The wine train.
And so like I agreed to drive them, and I was Aunt Dolores, my mom. So this is the order of like age or whatever. My mom, and then Aunt Barbara, and then Aunt Carmen's the youngest, and me. And I drove them to Napa, and it was so funny because like they're just like sisters, and they're like arguing, and like my mom wanted to go to this one restaurant, and Aunt Dolores didn't want to go, and my mom's like, we need to go. It's like some Mexican restaurant in like Hillsburg, I can't remember the name of the town. And so then we're all like sitting, eating, and then Aunt Dolores told my mom, she was like, like I always fight you on these things, and then whenever, we do the things you want to do, it actually winds up being really great, Brenda. And then mom was like, yeah, I just wish you wouldn't fight me in the beginning. And then like when we're driving, like they were just like, Aunt Carmen and mom, like they were drinking wine. And so like mom doesn't do good like when she drinks, so she'll like nod off, and then she'll like wake up and like argue. And then like we were on the train, and like the train only seats like 4 people, and but there was like 5 of us. And so like I had to sit across from them with a complete stranger. And Aunt Dolores was so like, she's like, I don't like this at all. Like, I'm so upset. Like, she was so mad that like I wasn't sitting at their table. And I was like, no, it's fine, Auntie. It's all good. But like, she always like looked out for me, and just, they all did. And so And at that time I was going through a lot, like personally. I was like suffering migraines and stuff. And these migraines like would actually take out away my eyesight. Like I was actually like really, really bad. And Aunt Carmen, I remember her just sitting with me and she massaged my temples and she was like, you know, you're holding too much stuff and you need your family. And she was like, and you need to tell Shelly what's going on with you. Because I hadn't told anybody. And Shelly and I, you know, I hadn't talked to her about it. And so she was just like, you need to. And like that, after that, like I started contacting Shelly, and Aunt Dolores told me she wanted me to plan the next family reunion. And she was like, I want us to have a family reunion before I'm too old to enjoy it. And so she asked me to plan it. And so I started planning it, and I planned a trip for us to the Grand Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and we planned to drive through Vegas first. And so we all met up in Vegas and then we went to the Grand Canyon. But it all came from like me taking my aunties and my mom to the to the Napa. And like now Aunt Barbara and my mom are the only two that are still alive, because Aunt Dolores and Aunt Carmen both passed away. So I just really cherish that I got to do that with them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember the first time you learned about racism?
So my parents, they were like old school for real, and they were all both like activists and stuff. So they were just like hardcore with us. Like they would just like talk to us about racism all the time. And, you know, I think I like, you know, remember knowing about like, you know, the civil rights movement, Malcolm X, you know, listening to the music and the freedom songs and all that stuff. And South fighting for against apartheid, South Africa, like in, you know, I remember bringing like Nina Simone records to school and stuff. And like, you know, Mississippi Goddamn, and like playing them on the record player. Like, you know, but I remember being in first grade, and so like I used to my parents, my dad taught me how to read when I was really small. And he would just give me the dictionary and like point to words, and if I was able to read them, he would give me a $2 bill every time I read like a big word out the dictionary. So when I started school, he always says that going to school really was what made me. He was like, you were smart before you went to school. They dumbed you down. That's what he always said.
That you got dumber?
He was like, they attacked you and they dumbed you down because like they didn't want me. So like I had this, you know, I always, you know, was gifted and talented or whatever. And I remember my being tested, and like our babysitter, her name was Linda Federowitz. And she came and they were like, oh yeah, we're not going to put her into the gifted program. And she was like, this was my mom was going to San Francisco State, and she was like, how can she not be in the gifted program? This girl can read so well, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh yeah, she can, but you know, she didn't do so well on these math tests. And I'm like, or whatever. Like it was something where like I had scored off the charts on one end, and they still didn't put me in gifted and talented. And I knew that was because I was Black.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you just talked about an experience with racism. Would you like to share another one? Are you good on that one? Or you know?
Yeah, no, I feel like there's so many.
Yeah, like we're Black in America.
Yeah, it's like a daily.
Okay. How do you think racism impacts our family?
I feel like the most it impacts us with, well, I could say from my standpoint, it's impacted me and Tarek as being parents of kids who have been discriminated against in school. And that has been the hardest thing, because throughout all of your schooling, like every single one of you had such the most difficult, you know, racist experiences, like every single one. And it was just like getting you all out of like public schools was like a triumph, because it was really like, and also to actually get you guys to be able to have like still have your self-worth and dignity. And like we decided to kind of like push back against like the mistreatment that you had by kind of like showing you from our standpoint how much we loved and valued you and how beautiful you were, to uplift you, because we knew that like the world wasn't going to do that. And so like we never took like the side of like anybody over your side, but we would always say like, you just need to tell us what we're getting into before we go, because we know that it's racist. And I think like when you started like because I feel like too, you and your sister Tasneem both had, you guys did so well in school and stuff like that. Like it was like the opposite. Like Sadiq and Leilani both struggled in school, like academics and stuff. And then you and Taz both were just like all, reading and getting good grades and, blowing it out the water with the standardized tests and stuff like that. So I never had to worry about you on the academic level at all, even though I did have to worry about your siblings on that level. So I feel like because I didn't have to worry about that for a long time, I was just like, oh, she's fine, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. And then like, as you got to high school, then I started hearing and learning about the fact that you guys are actually being discriminated against. And actually it started, I think, in middle school in Albany with you guys. There was just so many just messed up things that happened. But when we came to Soda, I actually thought that it was going to be better because it was San Francisco. And it wasn't. And it was a very, very, it was a very traumatizing experience trying to parent you guys, especially like you, because I feel like the last 2 years, and it was really just you and I got a lot closer because of the fact that I was after school pretty much every day, and I was there so much because I was just like, this is my daughter, this is all this stuff she has to go through, and I didn't want you to ever feel like you're dealing with it alone. Like I wanted you to know that that I was there, and that me and your dad, like we supported you, and that. But yeah, I think that's how it affected us. It was traumatizing. It traumatized us.
For surely. How do you deal with discrimination, with racism? Okay, well, I think you know the differences between racism and discrimination. I think we already know you know that. You can answer that question if you want to answer that question, but like it's kind of like, okay, so how do you deal with those things? Have they come out manifest in different ways in your life?
I feel like for the most part and I would say maybe for the past decade or so, maybe longer, I spend a lot of time trying to make people feel comfortable with me, especially because like I'm Muslim, I'm Black, I'm a woman, like all these, like the trifecta of like categories that you could be discriminated against or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always try and like make people feel like, make myself palatable to their imagination of like what it is that I could be. And I feel like I always push myself to do like 300 million things. Mm. And like my dad always kind of the same way that I feel like, we uplift you, like my parents uplifted me, especially my dad. Like my mom, she's uplifts me now, and she definitely was with education, but like it was hard growing up. Like she was tougher. And so, but dad was always like, I was always a daddy's girl. And then when, he would always just be like, you don't need a job. You need to work for yourself. You need to just, no need to have 9 to 5, just be an entrepreneur and F the system or whatever. And I never went that way. I was always like, okay, I'm going to try and work within the system. Mm-hmm. But then now that he died, I kind of feel like maybe he's right. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I need to just be more entrepreneurial and like tell my story. You know what I mean? And so one of the reasons why I'm even doing this is a way to address racism by, I'm calling it unhidden voices because I feel like our stories aren't told, And so I'm starting with mine. I started writing my memoir and then I'm doing this to promote that. And that's one way that
So you're coping with racism because through writing, through telling your story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Just
simplified.
Trying to get you to the
Sorry. Go ahead.
Have you ever had the talk with your children? When you say the talk, I need to change that wording because you know what the talk is, like sex.
Oh no! So for Black people, the talk is talking about.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not the talk.
So it's funny because so there's two things. The one is that from the very beginning, I think we through unconsciously taught you guys not to trust the police. I have had that talk with Sadiq more so than anyone because there was more shootings and different things that were happening to Black men, like Black boys his age, and he would wear hoodies and stuff. So me and your dad specifically sat down and talked to him about it, and because we were afraid. Like when he would leave the house and stuff like that. And so we were like, we need to talk to him. So yeah, we did have that conversation. And we would watch the news and watching these young kids get killed and with him and him being like, but why did they, he didn't understand, he didn't understand Trayvon, he didn't understand Oscar, he just couldn't understand it. And he didn't understand the evil behind it. And it was very hard because I don't understand it either, but I'm trying to explain it to you. You know what I mean? It was just a tough conversation.
Yeah, I think, not trying, I'm just going to follow up questions because, that's a good point. What you brought up, do you think it's dehumanizing in an effect because you're kind of trying to step into the mind of the oppressor when you're having those conversations? In a letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King has to embody the oppressor when he has to tell his daughter, you can't go to Funtown because you're Black. And she's on the TV. Do you feel like you have to embody the oppressor when you tell your son you can't wear a hoodie because you're Black and they might shoot you?
Okay, so there was so the answers to that question is no. And the reason why I say that is because I'll use this example. So when I was watching the news with my dad, and there was this John Imus, I think that was his name. He was like a sportscaster, and he saw the Black women from Rutgers, and he called them nappy-headed hoes, and it was on the news. And so then my dad just literally he heard this man say this about these Black women who were doing their best, these athletes and Black women athletes. And he literally started crying. That was the first time I had ever seen my dad cry, and I was an adult. And he was that could be you. He's just belittling them and what they're experiencing, and they don't even they're just trying to live their life, and he's calling them this, and he was so outraged that it was made him cry. And then I feel that I see my kids, I see their reflection in these other people. I'm not embodying the person saying it. I'm telling you, they don't see you the way I see you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I'm trying to let you know, yeah, I uplift you, but you also have to be aware that these people don't, and so you have to be, just know what you're doing when you're out here in this world, because everybody's not going to love you like we do.
Right. Okay. Do you remember the first time you saw or experienced a Black person, including yourself, being mistreated by the police?
Yes. I was in LA. I was with my dad and I'll just say uncle, but it was more like a cousin, but he was an adult. and my sister and my brother, and my dad had they had just bought a car, and we were driving in Los Angeles, and my dad went the wrong way down a one-way street by mistake. And the next thing you know, like he was like making a U, and then when we came out of that street, we were surrounded by cop cars, and they took us out of the car and put us on the curb and handcuffed us. And I
How
couldn't have
old were
been
you?
I couldn't have been more than like 7 or 8 years old.
Handcuffed to 7.
Yeah, they handcuffed all of us. They took us to jail. They put my sister and I in a cell together. They put my brother in the men's side, juvenile hall. My brother is like, I'll say maybe 19 months younger than me. So he was, if I was 7, he was like 5,
Wow.
5.5. And he was like crying, and we were separated. And my sister and I, like, we were in individual cells, and we were like singing to each other. And then we kind of talked to the guard, and we asked them about our brother, and we were like, can he please come, because he couldn't even be with my dad, because my dad went, and my uncle went to like adult prison, side or whatever, jail. And then my baby brother was in juvenile hall. So they told us, oh, so there's nothing we can do. Like, they didn't see us as human. And then they said, okay, well, we'll unlock, because luckily for us, like, nobody else was arrested at that point. So they unlocked the 2 individual cells and just let us be behind the main open cell, so we can kind of like interact with each other. And
they just but still left Uncle Sundiata.
Yeah.
At the age of 5 in a cell with other older men.
Yeah. Or at least older. And they said like that he was in there crying, like she told us.
Who?
The guard, or the police officer that was keeping us, imprisoned. So then, like, we tried to reach my cousin. We couldn't, like, they couldn't. So finally she came. Like, we were never charged or whatever. They just
because you were a little kid. Like, what are they going to charge you with?
But they kept us there for hours.
Ridiculous.
So, yeah. So that was my first.
Did they ever let you see your brother?
They did when my cousin came to get us out.
How long were you in there before she came to get you out?
Like, we didn't get out until after. Like, literally, we were arrested in the afternoon, and we didn't get out till like the wee hours of the morning. So they kept you guys separated till the wee hours of the morning? Yeah. Wow. And then my dad stayed in the jail overnight. Like, he was not able to come out until he was bailed out. And then that night was the night that my grandmother, my dad's mom, died. Wow. And so my dad always said that the reason why that happened was because she died, and like her prayers were what had watched over us, or over him, like all the other times in his life, and that she wasn't there to pray for him. So then that's why he got arrested like that. Yeah. So.
Wow. Okay. Have you protested against police violence?
Yes, I have a lot.
Why? Well, like the dirty. I don't know. Like your experiences.
Huh?
Your experiences with police. I mean, how could you not want to get out there and be like?
Yeah. So like the police to me are
horrible.
Yeah, I have such horrible concepts of them, and also just the whole. I feel like the resources that go to them is just disproportionate, especially in our communities, and they're just killers. You know what I mean?
Really
like to us, and they don't see us as humans, so therefore they would do these horrible things that they do. So yes, I protested because that's the way that I fight injustice, and I've been taught that from a very young age, and my parents were activists, so
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going like back to the story you were telling. Like Zachariah is about to be 5.
Yeah.
Like if somebody put him in handcuffs and in a cell, I would like literally lose my mind.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
You answered this question about police interaction with the Black community. You said, you know, they just don't see us as human.
Mm-hmm.
How the police, you talked about how the police have interacted with you, like in that instance. You have like some more you want to say? They've always been kind
So
of
like it's so funny because like I remember like I was pregnant with you and I was driving in Richmond and like I had my minivan and I had all like, you know, my kids in the car, like, you know, there's 3 older kids than you and I'm like visibly pregnant and I'm driving and say I'm going like 30 and a 25. I don't even remember now. But the police officer pulls me over and he was like, ma'am, get out the car. And like he made me get out the car and like I had my kids in the car and they're like, this is why I asked you if you remember that, but now I remember I was pregnant with you, so you couldn't remember that. But like your sister Tasneem was like in a car seat, like, you know, and Sadiq and Sadiq and Leilani, you know, were like, you know, whatever, 7, 8, you know, 6, 7. And so anyway, so he runs my plates, like to see if I had like stolen the car. And I'm like literally driving a minivan with a big pregnant belly and all these daggone kids, like what?
Yeah.
You know, so then like he was like, sorry, ma'am, like I just have to check because, you know, you never know. Like it was just like an asshole
you
thing.
Never know.
Yeah. So then I was just like, can you just give me my ticket? Like I was so outraged, you know what I mean? And I couldn't believe it. And he was like, have a nice day. And he gives me like this ticket for like whatever, hundreds of dollars for speeding. So I had to go to court and you know, and then I decided to plead, you know, no contest or whatever and just pay the ticket because I was like, I'm never going to say that I'm guilty of this. You know what I mean? Even though I probably was doing whatever he said I was doing. But the fact that he mistreated me was like.
Yeah, who cares
Yeah.
whether or not you were speeding?
Exactly.
Going 30 and a 25.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So.
But he speeds all the time. Piece of crap. All right, moving on. What role does family play in your life?
3 words.
Family. These questions jump all over the place.
Yeah, well, I know.
You gotta just copy and paste. But anyway, what role does family play in your life?
Okay, family is pretty much everything to me, and it's a huge part of my life. Like I think family is like, you know, it's God, family, and then I see, because for me, there's like my family that like my husband and my kids and grandkids, whatever, my mom, like my, you know, when I even think of my immediate family, I also think of my siblings and stuff like that as immediate family. And then I don't look at like, even like Shelly and Doug and them, even though we don't, you know, they live 3,000 miles away or whatever, I still think of them as like immediate family. Like, you know, I talk to them all the time. I text them every day. I talk to them more than I talk to even my sibling, like my sister. You know what I mean? Like Shelly and Doug are like my sister and brother, even though they're not. But, you know, we do everything together and we're close. So, and, you know, and Mateen, like, you know, like we're just a super close family. So everything is, family is everything to me.
Who taught you to value your family?
My mother and her sisters. My mom always ensured that I had a relationship with my family. She would always have me talking to them on the phone, or she sent me to visit my aunt when I was young. I stayed with Aunt Carmen like a few summers when I was a teenager, you know, so they made sure that I was close to them.
Yeah. How would you like to be remembered by your family?
as someone who stood for them and fought for them and made sure that their voices were heard.
Okay. Who in the family has been your biggest teacher? Share something they taught you and that you'll never forget.
So I'm gonna just say that my parents and my dad really taught me that the importance of storytelling, and he taught me that I was beautiful no matter what. And my mom taught me the importance of education, and she always said, like, once you have, like, if you're going to invest in anything, invest in yourself, you know. And she was like, education is the one thing that no one can ever take away from you.
Yeah. What do you want everyone to know about what it means to be a part of our Black family in America?
I want everyone to know that being a part of our family means that we love each other to life. Like, it's like always, you know, we just find so much joy in loving each other, and we can always, no matter what happens, we can always find that laughter and that fun and that loudness. So that's always great.